What's going on, everybody? This is Black Men Sundays. I'm your host, Corie Murray, and we're talking about generational wealth, finance, business, and of course, mental health. Oh, and by the way, happy Father's Day.
It's a Black Man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate.
On today's show, we're talking about one of the most powerful tools for building wealth and creating a legacy. That's right, home ownership. Joining us is Phil Ganz, a certified mortgage planning specialist and president and founder of Next Wave Mortgage. With more than 24 years of experience in residential financing, Phil is licensed in multiple states and has helped countless families navigate the path to home ownership, real estate investing, and long term financial stability. He specializes in first time home buying education, down payment assistance programs, DSCR investment loans, and wealth building strategies through real estate. Today, Phil will share practical insights on buying a house, avoiding costly mortgage mistakes, understanding today's market, and utilizing real estate as a vehicle for generational wealth. So without further ado, Phil, welcome to Black Men Sundays, brother. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Definitely. We're excited to have you. So let's jump right on in. So in 2026, is home ownership still one of the best paths to building generational wealth?
It is, it will be. And I think where people have to change their mindset is not trying to predict, is this the best day or month to buy? But looking at it as the long term. And in the long term, there is no more tried and true investment than home ownership.
Now, what's the biggest lie people believe about buying their first home?
The biggest lie that they believe is that it has to be the forever home, right? When you buy your first home, the way I look at it is that it's just a step to build generational wealth, right? So it doesn't have to be, your forever home. I would treat it more like the prom. That's it. It's something you should do. It's something you should participate in. And then, obviously, I would definitely buy your first home as young as you can.
And what's keeping more families, specifically Black families, from building wealth through real estate?
I would say there's two parts. I would say the first part is that not knowing all the programs that are available, right? Florida has amazing down payment assistance programs. And so what that means is that you can buy a home and not need a down payment. And that is something really good. The second part is that I would really say that people really need to focus in on is the ability to save. The first thing about investing is to have the saving mentality. It's not what you make, it's what you save. And if we can definitely, go over the nickels and save as much as we can, then that will make home ownership just so much easier and reduce the friction so you can buy as soon as possible.
And how much money do you actually need to buy a home in 2026? And what down payment assistance programs are people overlooking?
What I would tell people is when you want to buy a home, say with no money out of pocket, there's two things you need to think of. The first is down payment assistance. So typically down payment assistance will cover the whole down payment. Now that's not everything that you need because you need money for closing costs, right? And so the way that you need to think of it is that how do we get the closing cost paid? So you can either have it or you can get the seller to pay. Now, if you look at your biggest purchase up to this moment, it's probably been a car, right? So say you see a car listed for $30,000, right? You go to the car dealership, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to pay 30. I'll pay 28. So you negotiate 28,000, right? And you did your research and they said, fine. But the dealership knows you may not have all the money to close the deal. So the dealership then says, okay, the closing costs are 3,000. We'll do a sign and drive and we'll sell it to you for 31,000. Okay. And so you bought the car for 31, but the first thing you did was you establish the price point. So if you have the right program plus the right strategy of determining the price point before you start your negotiations by visiting these homes, then you'll be much more successful in terms of likely to complete the transaction.
Now, what mistakes do first-time home buyers make before they even apply for a mortgage?
The biggest thing they do is, I'll tell you one thing. One, they'll have debt, right? And the reason why they have debt is they're trying to save for a down payment. And this is counterintuitive because the increase in the debt, these interest rates on these credit cards, 10 to 30%. So the debt gets worse, the credit ends up tanking. So this is something bad. What I would tell anyone looking to buy, the first thing is to buy is to eliminate all your debts. Save as much money. Have the saving mentality. All these little bills add up, like a cup of coffee, $10, right? Or whatever, right? It's like over a year, if I waste $10 a day times 365 days, that's $3,000, right? Over 3,000 times 10 years, you're $40,000 of waste. And that's just compounded even more. So I tell people, some of the good offense is great defense, right? You want to win a championship or you want to buy a home, it's the same thing. You got to look at trying to save wherever you can. And you know what? Sometimes even myself, people will make fun of me. You say, why? I'll tell you a story. Like, I buy my food, online and I like the best quality food. So, I get it shipped to me, but I don't go out and waste money and I don't drink, right? And so someone will say to me, oh, Phil, you spent, say, $1,000 for 90 or 60 days of food online that got shipped to you. They'd be like, oh, but you don't go out and spend $200 for one time. Like, they'll criticize me for buying grass finished beef or wasting money there. They think it's a waste, but then they go out for one brunch and it's made $100 to $200, to have a good time. And so, look, people can have a good time wherever they want, but I realize I want to eat healthy and I don't want to waste my money, right? This is a choice I've made, right? And I feel better and I got more money, right? And I would tell people, you got to look at your habits and your spending. And this is a big thing, financial literacy. They say, well, when does it start? Tell people I got baby Madison. I'm 48 years old. I got an 8-month-old. When should, financial literacy start? I'd say day zero, as soon as possible, right? Babies learn at a young age and you want to start as young as possible for everyone. So, I'd say saving is a great skill that needs to be taught.
Great information. Now, if someone wants to buy a home within the next 12 months, what should they be doing right now?
Eliminating all their debt as fast as possible. You don't need any money to buy a home. You don't. Forget that. You need to eliminate your debt, eliminate past collections, past liabilities. Don't get into any debt consolidation programs. If you owe it, you pay it. Even if it's a past collection, pay it. Any debt, pay it. Never close your credit cards, but pay all of your debt. This is the key to success, because once you pay off your debt, that frees you up all your money because you're not going to have any obligations. The goal is to create as much cash flow as possible in life. This is the goal. So how can you have cash flow if you have this big reoccurring debt and liabilities, right? So I would tell you, you want to be offensive with the debt. Treat it, very aggressively to eliminate as much as possible, as fast as possible.
And is waiting for interest rates to drop a smart strategy or a costly mistake?
It's a horrible mistake. I'll tell you a situation. I had a client. Well, they're not a client because they never closed to me. We'll call it a prospect. And, they call me and that very nice woman. And they say, I'm technically a first-time home buyer. Okay, why are you technically? Well, I haven't bought a home since 2006. I said, okay. I said, well, what happened in 2006? And for people that don't know, the market crashed in, '07. She's like, I used to live in Miami. Me and my husband, we bought a house. I think she said like 425 in Miami. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what happened? She's like, well, it went down to 350. And then I decided to let it go. She actually did a short sale. And what that means is the bank assumed the mortgage, right? And, the $75,000 loss. And I said to her, man, I felt so bad that you lost your jobs. She said, no, I never lost my jobs. I'm a nurse. And my husband's a physician. I said, okay, well, why did you let go of the home? She said, because the value went down. I'm like, okay, well, what's the address of the house? Because I was curious to see what the value would be worth today, right? And basically the house was worth, and she wouldn't give me the address, but she did. She applied for the pre-approval, so it had like the prior addresses on her credit report. So I put it in Zillow. It was almost $3 million. That's what the value was. So she let go of a home that would be worth many times more in the future, but she was so concerned of what it would be worth, and she lost a little money in the short run. And this is just such illogical math, because in the state of, say, Florida or Texas or in most places, but definitely Florida, because this is where we live, that if you buy a home for $300,000 and in 30 years, it goes up 8% a year, it's now worth $3 million. And you're a multimillionaire. You did your generational wealth and you did nothing fancy. Nothing. You just bought, paid, and that was it. Set it and forget it. Be all in and do nothing crazy. In life, to become rich, you don't have to do fancy things and ridiculous trading strategies and all these things that people want to do. That's not how you have to do it in life. What you have to do is you've got to be disciplined. You got to be willing to make a sacrifice. Eliminate your debt. Buy a home, and don't do anything else. Just keep saving, right? Even if you just bought a home and you kept cash, you'd be still a multi-millionaire. And this is what people don't realize. They look for shortcuts, quick strategies to make a lot of money. And these are very bad things that social media has portrayed and put a lot of families that least can afford it in awful situations.
What's the biggest mortgage mistake you've seen someone make that cost them thousands of dollars?
I can tell you, it's like my brother. My brother waited too long. You want to start when you're young, right? The younger you start, the better. Like, even if you knew the market was going to go down, I'd still buy, because that's the right thing. And I'll tell you the reason why, right? And I think this is important for the viewers. Okay, so say your monthly payment is $2,000. In America, we always have inflation. That means the dollar value becomes worth less over time. This is why everything goes up, like in price, right? And so if you buy it as $2,000 in 5 years, it's going to feel like it's $1,600 today. And so over time, it's going to feel like you don't have a monthly payment because the dollar of the value is worth less and less. So, you always get a raise and things always go up. Look at, McDonald's. When I'm 48 years old, when I was in high school in 1997, I could buy a soda for 25 cents. 30 cents. Now I think it's like $2, right? And so there's the value of time can't be understated. The best time is 10 years ago. The second best time is now. But people need a sense of urgency. And the reason why people push, timing is that they're delaying making sacrifice. It'd be like me asking, well, when's the best time to go to the gym and get ripped? Oh, let me do it in January so I can time it with everyone else. But that's so silly because the most popular time is January and the most popular time to quit is February. It's so crazy, right? I mean, there's industries built on this. But if you want to start to win, the best time is immediate. That's why financial literacy has to start at day zero for kids. Because if it's starting at day zero, you'll think, when does it start? Now, right? It will start immediately. The kids should start learning how to save. Because if you start to save money, you will have good credit, you will not have debt, and you'll be in a great position. You'll understand what sacrifice is like. And that can't be understated the principle because you don't have to make a lot in life. You just have to be willing to save a lot. And that is a skill. That is probably one of the most important skills that people can learn today. How to save money.
Now, what separates people who successfully build wealth through real estate from those who stay financially stuck?
I would tell people, it's still the same skills. Rinse and repeat. It's the ability to save and to resist temptation. And I can tell people this. In all honesty, I saw what it could look like. My parents got divorced because my mom, had a spending problem. Didn't matter what my dad could make. It didn't matter. My dad's a physician. But we were poor, and debt collectors would call us all the time. And you're like, this is so crazy. How could this be if you could make so much money? Right? Well, my dad did work in a public hospital, but it didn't matter. Right? It tore. If my dad made $1, my mom would spend $1.20. And it was such an awful experience. Just growing up with the phone ringing, of not wanting to pick it up. Right. This is what I remember. That phone in my mind reminds me of why you shouldn't spend, why you got to make sacrifice. Right. And it can ruin families over spending. This is actually a terrible thing. And like I said, it doesn't matter what you can make. People have this thing, well, I'm going to make more money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And yes, I feel bad that there's inflation and things go up. But there's always ways that people can save money. Because look, I'm on social media and Facebook, and I see how much people spend and all this. Like, just to let people know, I have this shirt that I'm wearing today, Amazon Basic, $9, right? Like, I don't wear, fancy things, right? I don't. Like, sometimes I am maybe too cheap, but it looks great. My shirt looks great, $9, right? You don't need fancy anything, right? What we need to do is learn how to save to get ahead so we can start winning. This is really thing. We don't need to do anything fancy because there's nothing magical that we have to do to really get ahead and start to compound and save money.
Great information. Now, if you were talking to a 25-year-old man, specifically a 25-year-old black man, because this is Black Men Sundays. So if you were talking to a 25-year-old black man trying to build wealth and change his family's future, what would be the first real estate move you'd tell him to make?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would look at your bank account statements. This is the first thing I would analyze is monthly behaviors. I would pull up your bank account statements. Maybe you could load it to ChatGPT and Gemini and figure out where you need to start saving, right? I would focus in on a great defense first, right? And say, look, if we can save here, then we can invest over there. Because without the ability to make a sacrifice and be able to save, this is a key component, right? And I think that's what I would tell any black person that's 25 or actually anyone, right? But I would tell the black person, we got to save money as much as possible. This is the key for us winning. We can do this. And I'd be very positive about it. I would think I'd make it like fun, and I think I would approach it like differently because saving money can be cool. Maybe it's not as flashy as other things. But I would tell people we're going to get ahead and we're going to win. And I would say this, if you really want to get ahead in life, you got to think of the end result. I would say to someone 25, what do you want? And I would talk with them. Okay, you want to be multimillionaire? Okay, let's work backwards. What age? They'd say, well, I want to do this at, say, 50. And I'd work back from 50 all the way to 49 to 48 to 47 to 46. I'd go over every year what it would take and show the benefits of saving and investing. I'd also show them you don't need to do anything fancy. Even if you only save cash, you don't need to do any fancy investments or anything like that. I'd build it up by small wins. And this is like, so important. So important. You know what I would tell people what it's like is that it's not, in life, it's not about making all these big maneuvers and big shots. It's about not making a lot of mistakes. It's about minimizing your mistakes. So if we can minimize the mistakes and save, that will give you more opportunity to acquire your first home at a younger age to set yourself up for the future. And I'd frame it like that, and I would spend the time with them so they would understand it.
And what are DSCR loans and how are investors using them to build wealth?
So a DSCR, let me tell you what it is. It stands for debt service ratio loan. It's a business loan. And the way the banks kind of calculate it is that if your rent that you collect is equal to your mortgage payment, that's a 1. And as your rent exceeds your mortgage payment, then it goes from above 1, right? And that is good. And the reason why a lot of people are taking advantage of them is that your personal income is not being verified, only the income of the property. So it's like you're running a business, and it's easier to acquire properties, refinance properties, and ultimately, build wealth because you're not restricted based on your personal returns, just how well you can run a business.
Now, what are some disadvantages of DSCR loans?
I would tell for a lot of people is that you would need, a down payment of minimal 15%. It's not your first time home buyer loan. It's for people that already have money to invest, right? But there really is no true disadvantage once you have a down payment because interest rates are less and it's all about the property. But if you're looking, I guess, for that one disadvantage, your personal income can't offset this property not being a good investment. So if you maybe have to have the property because maybe the rents aren't stabilized or your vision to fixing it up can bring in a lot more, potential for the property, but it would be based on futuristic goals. But for most people, a DSCR loan for investing is the right option because if it doesn't make sense for the bank, it should make sense for you.
And how are investors using them to build wealth?
They're using them because it's very easy to accumulate many properties at once, right? And they're buying them in an LLC. What an LLC is, a limited liability corporation, and it gives you more tax advantages and more protections from lawsuits. And it's a really beautiful thing. So it's a way to basically collect money and minimize your taxes. And it makes you a more aggressive investor towards the IRS because the business would have its own separate tax return. And it's really a great thing. And I tell people to invest in real estate. It's tried and true. But in any investment, you never want to get overextended.
So in today's market, would you rather have a great credit score, a large down payment, or higher income?
I would say if you're an investor, you want a down payment, right? Because it's easier to accumulate. You need money, right? That being said, so that'd be at the top. There is a minimum type of credit, and you want to make sure your credit's clean and that you really haven't been late in the last 12 months on any credit card debt and no late with any installment loans of auto loans in the last 24 months. And you want the house in order. So I would tell anyone before you start investing, make sure your finances, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Yeah, my name's Kalali Dogbe. I'm out of Prince Frederick, Maryland. You just briefly talked about being overextended. What are some pitfalls that cause investors to become overextended?
They have lofty goals of potential, what can be versus reality, right? They think they'll easily raise rents or, they take bigger risks than they should, right? In a YOLO economy of going all in, people seldom can afford the fallback, so they're not well prepared. It's like restaurants. The reason why restaurants fail at such a high rate is restaurants, it's not the chefs, it's not the operations. They just didn't have enough cash to weather the storm, right? They were ill prepared to have enough funds. And I think having the right assets can help you, survive any bad, real estate investments.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I'm a big fan myself of investing in real estate. As far as real estate is concerned, right now, we're looking at people are looking at acquiring properties and different things like that, but they're also being impacted by what the interest rates are right now. Do you have any advice for folks who are I guess kind of skittish based on what the interest rates are right now?
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that overall, I think rates are great because you buy it, and if it makes sense, then you're going to have inflation and just make more money over time, right? I love real estate. And it's funny, people will be so critical of real estate, of like, oh, I need perfect rents, right? I need everything needs to be perfect, even though the numbers will make sense. But then for like other investments, there's like no due diligence, right? Like you're the largest IPO ever, SpaceX, right?
Right.
I think it was on Friday, right? With Elon
Yeah.
Musk. You're like, okay, so how's this thing gonna make money, right? Like, it could take years. It's all these things are based on potential. People buy cryptocurrency, all based on potential. All these investments I see on all these things that may never even happen, but
Yeah.
for a no-brainer real estate investment, people are like, "Oh, I want everything to be way more, perfect." And I just tell people, real estate is like a way safer investment over many years than like I gotta put it this way. You said what city do you live in, sir? What city?
Prince Frederick, Maryland.
Chris Frederick, right? So if you
Yeah.
bought any home in Chris Frederick, didn't matter, right? You just threw
Yeah.
darts, right? On any 10 random homes. 10 years ago today, you look like a genius, right? If I take the same thing, 10 darts, and I threw it on random stocks, right? I mean, some of these companies may not even be around, right? And yes, the stock market's at an all-time high, but 92% of America's wealth is tied up where? In real estate. So for most of America, buy something that's obvious, something you can enjoy, a home. Stop making other people rich. They're trying to time things when all you have to do is buy it. Think about it, 10 years ago, you owned a home, right? Like it just goes up in value. Could you have made a bad investment? And I would tell anyone like, if you live in the right areas, most likely you've done exceptionally well, So I wouldn't panic of a 6 or 6.25. I would say, look, just buy and hold. Think long term. The counter to interest rate is you got to think long term because usually when people push back on interest rate and then you peel back their other investments, they're all in on SpaceX, cryptos I've never heard, and some other multi-level marketing scheme. And here's what I'm involved in: real estate. That's it. I don't want to be involved in like other speculative endeavors. I'm out of that game, right? I'm just gonna go with what I know because I'm in the industry, would I know that works? And this is something you can pass on to your kids. It will go up in value. They'll hold it, and then they're going to hold it again. And I think this is a valuable lesson, is just buy real estate and own as much as you can have, right? Just buy it, set it, and forget it.
What about just like, where there's like plots of land for sale? Because I've seen a lot of places where there's like plots of land for sale, and I was like, man, if I just had like a chunk of like liquid money, I might just buy some plots of land, some plots of unimproved land. Have you looked into that? Thought about that?
You know, that's a little bit more difficult because it's a little bit more speculative and you got to learn how to turn it. I do like real estate as an investment, but that's probably one of the most speculative parts of real estate would be like plots of land. Not to say it's not a bad thing, but you got to
Hmm.
know what you're buying on that because it's not going to generate you a dividend. See, one of the great things about real estate is when you own it, you make money every month, right? It's great. Your mortgage balance goes down and what you can collect can go up. Or even if you're primary residence, the values can go up. And I tell people this, here's the way landlords typically configure your rent. They take the value of your house and they divide it between 6 to 8, right? That's really what it is. So every year, someone's rent is basically, call it 7% of the value of the home. Every year. You're no way. Yeah. You just collect money. And that's why it's always everything will go up. There'll always be inflation, right? And people want to overthink it, sure. But I really like real estate because it's more simple and it doesn't have a negative like you got to pay the taxes or whatever that is, right? But I'd rather own real estate of collecting a dividend.
I guess in your investments, do you work with property managers? Have you worked with property managers, or how do you go about that management aspect of it?
You know, what I would tell people is most people are small landlords, right? So they can
Yeah.
manage it themselves. I know some other people that do work with property managers. That's great to get your time back if you do other things, right? I did do a property manager once. I'll tell you when. I did an Airbnb, and that was a
Okay.
complete loser. Awful. I changed that to a 12-month rental. That was not a good investment.
Mm.
Um, and not all real estate is a good investment, but I would stay away from Airbnb, fractional ownerships. Stick to 12-month leases, more conservative real estate investments.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that's all the questions I have for you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I always want to be able to help people out because people don't know where to turn. And everyone's looking to get ahead. And you're like, well, what do we do here? Right? It's just like the best advice I can give people is if your investments seem exciting, this isn't good. Right? This is basically it. If your investments seem
Should be
really
more.
exciting, you know what I mean? It's like Warren Buffett. I've seen this. Oh, yeah, people could outperform him. You can't, right? Because he just looks for the same thing again and again and again. And people are like, oh, yeah, I'm going to use AI this and that and all these fancy things. You know what people's always best investments is? Real estate. If you just buy and you hold, it always works out for people, right? I mean, it is, I think it is really it really matters, right? I mean, think about it like this, right? That there was this running back for the Atlanta Falcons. And no, I think it was for the Buccaneers. War done, right? Black guy, right? And he was raised by a single mom, right? And he became very wealthy. And what did he do to help out his community? He helped out single moms with home ownership because he knew if you want to be a multimillionaire, it starts with one home. And no one's helped out people like Warren Dunn. He's an unbelievable philanthropist in Atlanta, Georgia, from helping out the black community, single moms with home ownership. I'm like, yeah, I read about that. I'm like, yeah, this guy is a winner, right? totally gonna transform of what needs to be done for the community. And that's exactly what I would do. And then there was that's what I would do is I'd focus in because if you own real estate, you're gonna win. You can start picking up the W's, right? And I hear the right idea. He still does. He's a young guy. And I think that's what the black community has to do is focus in on something that's tried and true. Forget any gimmicky thing at all, right? Buy homes, own them. Don't do anything fancy. Save some money. Buy more homes, and it's the winning will be contagious. I promise, right? It won't be exciting in the short run, but we can win, right? We can totally win. And I even read about another story that there was this other famous person, this rapper that was buying all these homes in California for people, and himself he's transforming the neighborhoods. He died, but he had the right idea: buy real estate, right? The more we buy, the better, right? And I think that's the key in financial literacy. Or what age does this start? If you have a baby, let's read to them about buying real estate. Learn how to save money. Teach investing. This starts not with the schools. It starts at home. And I would start it as young as possible. Day zero investing. And that's really what it really comes down to. That even if you can't save yourself, teach your kids this, and so we can start winning today for everyone.
Do you look nationally? Like, do you have an idea or a recommendation of like the hottest areas to buy real estate right now in the nation? Is that something you look at?
You know what I would tell people? So I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, right?
Yeah,
And like a lot of areas, the big metro area, call it Boston, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, LA, all it's not affordable for a lot of people, right? I
yeah,
would tell people your first investment needs to be where you're going to buy. And that may mean you have to relocate. And that's another sacrifice that people don't like because sometimes people are born in really expensive areas and they don't know what to do. They're like, well, my family's here, right? Well, sometimes you just got to move in life. And I don't blame people for not moving because I moved. And honestly, it was stressful. Let's see what happened. I got divorced. I changed companies twice. I got sued for $1 million. I got sued again. You see, I didn't get off to a good start when I moved, right? But it worked out in the end. And also, I would tell people, I asked my dad, who's my family's from Czechoslovakia, I said, would you have, this is 1968 when he left, I said, would you have moved if the Russians didn't invade? And for people who don't know, Russians always invade countries. That's their thing. Ukraine's the newest trend, but they invaded, like they always invade people, right? And so he said, because he lived in communism, I said, well, if it was like a 5 out of 10, would you have left? He said, no. I said, how about a 4 out of 10? Nope. 3 out of 10? Nope. Like that's the thing. People don't leave, even if it's like really like crappy. And I gotta tell people, if you want a better life for you and your family, it may go like absolutely awful in the beginning, but I would tell them you need the courage to like try to make it, and you might have to relocate. And I know it's not gonna go well in the beginning. It didn't go well for me in the beginning. I mean, it really didn't, and I don't want to sugarcoat it of how hard and stressful it might be. In the long run, you might have to relocate to take advantage of the opportunities for wherever you are. So you're like, well, where do you want to go? I would want to go where all the people where I want to be are. That's what I would do. Like if I had nothing, I'd point on a map and say, these are the people where I want to hang out with that have money. I'd go there.
once again, thanks for your time. Definitely, you definitely dropped a lot of knowledge. We call it dropping gems on here. You definitely dropped a lot of gems. So definitely appreciate it. I'll turn it back over to Corie at this time.
Yeah, great information, guys. Hey, Phil Ganz, man, are you enjoying yourself on Black Men Sundays?
I absolutely love being here. It's an honor to be here.
I have some strategy questions I kind of want to pick your brain on, so let's do it. So, what's a real estate strategy that wealthy people use all the time that the average person either doesn't know about or just completely misunderstands?
Yeah, what I would say is one thing that they definitely do is when they're filing their taxes, they're planning and they're hiring a CPA. This is the biggest thing for buying real estate. One of the biggest things is planning and preparing. They don't do anything like random, like look up in Zillow and say, I got to go buy a house today. So typically they're definitely preparing for their taxes, and getting their finances in order. They always know their numbers and they know the right time, where they should be entering kind of like the market for themselves and trying to get invested.
And if you could give every listener listening one mortgage strategy that could save them thousands of dollars over their lifetime, what would that be?
Yeah, I would tell the average person your best investment would be paying off your mortgage. You don't have to refinance. Who cares if your rates are 6 or whatever? People waste money. Your goal, like, here's the thing. Say your rate's 6 and you make an extra payment. That means you're getting 6% on your money. Guaranteed, because your mortgage balance is going down. There's few investments where you get 100% guaranteed. Okay? Few investments, right? So pay down your mortgage. This is a big mistake that they make. The average person does fancy things. Because what happens is your mortgage payment becomes worth less over time. So it's easy. So then as opposed to like, hey, let me just pay off my house in like 10 years, they say, oh, let me get fancy. Let me start investing in all these nonsense things. They're wasting money again. That's why from the beginning of the show, the good practice habits, that is exactly what would keep compounding your wealth. And that's what is so important. The practice habits of what helped you buy your first house will help you buy your 10th house.
Yeah, that's a gem right there. And for my listeners that are looking for a certified mortgage planning specialist, how can they contact you?
617-529-9317. 617-529-9317. Or you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn at, ask the mortgage expert, right? But I always tell people I'm always available to reach out. Even if I don't service your area, I'll always have a conversation with people. I will always talk with someone or text them or help them. There's no one I say no to. I have an open door to help out everyone.
Gotcha. And what about a website?
Yeah, you can go to www.nextwavemortgage.com. So it's www.nextwavemortgage.com.
Gotcha. And you know what? We'll wrap it up right there. That was a perfect way to end the show. So once again, Phil Ganz, certified mortgage planning specialist and president and founder of Next Wave Mortgage. Thanks for coming on Black Men Sundays. We appreciate you. We appreciate this whole conversation. Enjoy your day and enjoy your week as well.
Absolutely.
It's a black man's son.